Week 14 is in the books. It's time to break down the NFL playoff picture as we enter Week 15. First up, the AFC will go brief overview, then more in-depth on all the teams that are still alive. Chiefs and Bills have secured their divisions. Pittsburgh on the verge, and then 4 8-5 teams. Houston, Baltimore, Los Angeles, and Denver. Indiana, Miami, and technically Cincinnati are still alive. In the NFC, the Lions and Eagles have secured playoff spots, not yet their divisions. Seattle holds a game lead over the Rams in the NFC West. The Bucs have now taken a game lead over the Falcons in the NFC South. Vikings in fantastic shape. Packers and Washington, the other wild card leaders, with only one team technically eliminated in the NFC. If you guys enjoy our NFL playoff picture videos, want us to keep doing them each and every single week, even with the holidays coming up, like the video for me right now. Free, simple, easy to do. Appreciate everyone who does so please and thank you, like today's show. All right, let's go in-depth here on the AFC. It's going to be a long video. I don't actually apologize. It's more fun that way. The Chiefs, I don't know how they keep getting away with it. Every single Chiefs game is some wacky, wild, wow, they shouldn't have won that game, but they did. And they're not even playing well. What are they going to do in the playoffs? Is their luck going to catch up to them? Or are they going to suddenly play really good? Who knows? They get the Browns this week. They have clinched the AFC West already and at least the number 4 seed. They can also lock up the number 3 seed this week with a win over the Browns, or the Houston Texans lose to the Miami Dolphins. That would secure at least the number 3 seed for the Chiefs. Kind of sounds weird because it doesn't involve Pittsburgh, but it is how it works out. All right, Buffalo Bills. I don't know how they lost that game. Actually, I do know how they lost. The defense was terrible. They get the Lions now. So back-to-back tough games for the Bills as they're fighting for seeding. Got the tiebreaker over Pittsburgh for the time being. 2 games back at the Chiefs, though, so head-to-head win. They have clinched at least the AFC East. Now, they've got 3 easy games at the end of the year. Patriots twice, Jets once. So you're figuring should be at least a 13-win team for the Buffalo Bills. No scenarios in which they can lock up anything this week. They are going to remain at least, though, the number 4 seed no matter what. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they beat the Browns 24-17. The Eagles, there's some great afternoon window games. That's one of them against Philadelphia. Also still have the Ravens, Chiefs, and Bengals down the stretch. So not exactly an easy end-of-game slate for the 10-3 Steelers. Now, they can lock up a playoff spot this week with the following. A, simply beat the Eagles. That's step 1. Or the Colts and the Dolphins both lose. That would secure a playoff spot. They can lock up the number 6 seed with a win over Philadelphia. And, this is different, make note of it, the Broncos lose or the Chargers lose. So keep that in mind. It's a little bit different than just securing a playoff spot. They then get the 5 seed if all 3 of those things happen. Win, Denver loss, Chargers loss. Possible, frankly, that can happen this week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll get to the NFC in a little bit, I promise you guys. What do you think is the better conference this year? A for the AFC, N for the NFC. Let me know in the comments of today's show. All right, the current number 4 seed, Houston Texans, coming off the bye. Get Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore down the stretch. Now, as of right now, they still have a 2-game lead over the Indianapolis Colts. And they have tiebreakers too. But Miami, KC, Baltimore, those are not guaranteed wins for Houston, especially with some of the inconsistencies they've played. But the 2-game lead with 4 to go, 96% certainly makes sense. Now, they can lock up the AFC South this week because they have the tiebreakers. That's how close they are. A win over Miami and a Colts loss to Denver, which, again, is very possible. And if the Colts lose to Denver, all of a sudden you're kind of like, okay, the AFC playoff picture is almost set in stone at this point. Because there's a big gap between the 3 8-5 teams in the wild card, the 2 6-7 teams, and the Bengals technically still alive. Because the Chargers lost, and because it's a 3-team tiebreaker scenario, the Ravens actually have jumped back up into the number 5 spot in the AFC playoff picture. And they've got the Giants this week, which they cannot technically clinch a playoff spot yet, but we're talking about 1 win would probably be enough, realistically. Steelers, a big game in Week 16. Texans, Browns. So winnable games going up here for the Ravens. That Texans game might not matter for seeding, but it will matter maybe for the Houston side of it. And wildcard seeding, too. The Chargers, painful loss against the Chiefs. They get a great game against the Bucs. Then Denver, massive seeding game right there. And then they wrap up at the Patriots, at the Raiders. Even if the Chargers lose 2 games back-to-back weeks against the Bucs and Denver, which they may not anyway, that's going to be a 10-win team, and they should be in. Denver. Now, their probability is a little bit lower, despite having the same record as the Chargers and Ravens, because this is such a high-leverage game against Indy. Denver wins that game against the Colts, they're probably going to be in. You know, that would have a 2-game lead at minimum over Miami, a 3-game lead over Indy, plus the tiebreaker, and 3 games to play. Now, they got the Chargers, tough one. Bengals could be a tough one. Bengals are still fighting, though their defense is terrible this year. And the Chiefs. So, make no mistake, Denver is not locked in, but if they beat the Colts, we'll check back in next week on the Next Gen Stats playoff probability. That's going to jump to like 95% if they win against Indy. Today's show is made possible by Game Time. They got a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. So don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets. It's just curation designed to save you even more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater. You can go to one of the CFP games. I know producer Chris, you went to the Big Ten Championship game, which they were super cheap on the Game Time app. Big stadium, Oregon a long way away, Penn State not that close. Things happen sometimes. Download the Game Time app. Use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create your account. Redeem code CHATSPORTS, ChatSports, for $20 off. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. But go to GameTime.co and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Now, the reason why Miami is still technically alive as we enter the home stretch here, or Indy, excuse me, they have the massive game at Denver. They win that game. They're 7-7. All of a sudden, they have a tiebreaker. They're a game back, and they play Tennessee, Jets, Jags. Indy, if they beat Denver, they should win out. That's a very easy slate of games. Now, if they lose that game, well, then they end up being the 500 team I said they were going to be. They screamed 9-8 team this year, 8-9, which is what they're in danger of reaching there. And as weird as this sounds, the Miami Dolphins really need an Indy win. Otherwise, that playoff probability drops a pretty significant amount here. They've also got the Texans, the Niners, who are teetering, Browns, and Jets. It seems like that early season swoon is going to be too much for Miami. The Bengals are the only other playoff team alive in the AFC. Cleveland, Jacksonville, New York Jets, Tennessee Titans, Patriots, and Raiders are all out. The Bengals have a 3% chance, so we won't spend any time on them. The rule's 10%. Or 5%, whatever it was. Either way, they're not there. All right, the Lions. Let's begin with them as they lead the NFC, a game advantage over Philadelphia here. They have locked up a playoff spot only because they only have a game lead over the Minnesota Vikings. Now, they want a thriller against the Packers, have a massive game against the Bills. There is a chance, my friends, that the Week 18 game against the Vikings is for the division. We'll see how it plays out, because if you lose to Buffalo, then it gets kind of dicey there. Now, the Lions can lock up the 5 seed this week. They cannot secure the division yet. With a win over the Bills, or a Packers loss to Seattle, and a Commanders loss to the Saints, which, possible, right? Very possible. Who do you think is the best team in the NFL right now? Is it Detroit? Is it somebody else altogether? Drop that team name for me in the comments section of today's show. Week 14 was good enough for the Eagles. Not pretty, but they did beat a fighting Panthers team. Now they get Pittsburgh in a fantastic game. Then the Commanders in a game that will probably be a chance for Philly to lock up the division. Then Dallas and the Giants to wrap up the season. They can clinch the number 6 seed with the following: a win over Pittsburgh and a Packers loss to Seattle. Now, I said that game might be for the division against the Commanders. It could be locked up this week if they beat the Steelers and the Commanders lose to the Saints. Now, I think the Commanders are going to win that game against New Orleans, but they do have a scenario in which they can lock that up. On top of that, Philly can also lock up the number 2 seed this week. If they beat Pittsburgh, the Seahawks lose to the Packers, and the Commanders lose to the Saints. That would, secure the 3 seed at best for Seattle, and the Commanders don't win the division, and now you're locked into there. The Lions could have something similar if the Vikings weren't only a game back, right? Speaking of Seattle, they beat the Cardinals, taking a really big step forward for their division hopes there. The issue for Seattle is the schedule's tough here down the stretch. The Packers, playoff team in Week 15. The Vikings, a playoff team in Week 16 as well. That could potentially drop Seattle down to 8-7. Then Bears, and again, maybe for the division in Week 18 at the LA Rams. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. But the top 2 teams are clear. The top, I think, 4 teams, if you want to go Minnesota, Green Bay to them in a minute, are very clear. 3, 4, and the 7th wildcard spot, up for grabs. Tampa's gotten a little hot here, folks. They beat the Raiders to improve to 28-13. They have a key game against the Chargers coming up this week as well. Then it's Dallas, Carolina, the feisty Panthers, and the Saints. Division games down the stretch. Tampa wins the games they're supposed to, which are probably those last 3. 10 wins. I'll get them in. I will have more updates for you here all season long. More playoff picture videos, of course, as well. So don't miss out. Hit that sub button for free at youtube.com/chatsportstv. Let's talk wild card teams here. And there are 2 very obvious ones that certainly stand out here. The Vikings. Impressive win over Atlanta. Game was close for a little bit, probably closer than the score even indicates, but the Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson combo was electric. Monday Night Football against the Bears. Seattle, Green Bay, Detroit. So potentially 3 playoff teams down the stretch here for Minnesota. Vikings think they're being underrated. That's fine. Chance to prove themselves. Now they can lock up a playoff spot with a win over the Bears or a Seahawks loss or a Rams loss. That would lock up at minimum a playoff spot. They should beat the Bears. There is a scenario that they know, going into this matchup on Monday Night Football, that they've secured a spot or not. I mean, shoot, it's Rams lost to the Niners. You might get that on Tuesday night or Thursday Night Football. Excuse me. They can also get the 6th spot with the win over the Bears and a Commanders loss, which would secure nothing higher than 7 for Washington if they do find a way to squeeze into the postseason. Talk about that more in depth in a second. Green Bay, extra time off from Thursday Night Football to Sunday Night Football. They got Seattle, Saints, Vikings, Bears. No playoffs clinching scenarios yet for Green Bay. Now, Washington mostly got the results I think they were looking for this past week while they were on bye. They have the Saints this week. I doubt they beat Philadelphia. Falcons game. All of a sudden, that game against a Falcons team that is reeling, that is now maybe fighting for a wild card spot as opposed to a playoff spot, that game has massive implications. Then the Cowboys, which may or may not matter in Week 18. Rams getting a little hot here, folks. 7-6, an impressive win over the Bills. Niners on Thursday night. Jets in Week 16. Cardinals, Seahawks to wrap up the season. They can beat the Niners on the road, which is by no means going to be a easy matchup for the Rams. Then all of a sudden, hey, they're 8-6. Not only are they alive in the wild card race, they are still very much alive in the AFC or NFC West race. However, Niners are favored in that game. The Falcons are reeling. They have lost 4 straight games since they beat the Cowboys and almost blew that game. And with the way they've been playing, maybe it would be different if we didn't go down. But a get-right game chance against the Raiders, then the Giants, and that massive game against the Commanders. You almost feel like Atlanta has to win out now. Maybe they can afford one more loss, but if they lose to the Commanders and the Bucs keep winning games, they're in a bad spot. The NFC South is a chance to come down to the wire, Who you got winning the division? F for the Falcons or B for the Bucs? Go vote right now. There are several teams who are technically alive in the NFC playoff picture still. Everyone but the Giants has not officially been eliminated. We'll make the cutoff 10% to go more in depth about them. Arizona at 9%. they're reeling. They've lost a couple games in a row. I think 3 straight. It's not very good. They're on the outside looking in, 3rd in the division. The Niners, 8%. I'm saying there's a chance. The Saints, Cowboys, Bears, Panthers, all less than 1% chance. There is no real hope. They're done. It ain't going to happen for them, and there will probably be some eliminations coming this week, by the way. So for the time being, it's kind of a heavy NFC playoff picture graphic. Those teams are probably a bit more concerned about the tanking and drafts picks than their actual playoff hopes and dreams.